Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Vincitore, and I'm sitting here with Tera McIntosh. She's one of our leadership faculty members and department chair of the Mindful Leadership curriculum. And it's nice to have you here from beautiful Asheville. You and your partner have how many dogs?
Well, currently we have 6 dogs, but we're fostering a 7th that is in hospice care, and our neighbor is in the hospital. So we're actually taking care of her dog. So now we currently have 8, but it's temporary, hopefully. It's the neighborly thing to do,
Yeah.
when someone's in
Yeah.
the hospital, you help out, and so he kept visiting us, and now he just started sleeping over. So we gave him a bath and a bed, and he's all good. So.
That's funny. And there's chickens, right? Did you guys get chickens?
Yeah, we have 3 chickens. They're about 24 weeks old. We're still waiting for them to lay some eggs. They can lay eggs anywhere from 18 weeks to like 40 weeks. It depends on like their environment, if they're stressed out. So I've been practicing some mindful techniques with the chickens to de-stress them so I can start getting some eggs. So we'll see how it goes.
Interesting. I'm really curious how you do that, but I feel like we're going to let's jump into something else because I feel like we can go off on this tangent of mindfully caring for chickens. So talk about some of the classes you teach. I know you are really in love with this peace building course and making it better all the time. Maybe start there with that course.
Yeah, so I started teaching peace building probably in 2015. Since then, I've actually redone the course completely to use a book that focuses more on dialogue and peace building, the way that we speak in our language and how it impacts ourselves and our culture and environments around us. I've had an interest in peace building because most of my research focuses in restorative practices, which was actually taken from the restorative justice movement, which is actually taken from restorative peacekeeping circles, which is a Native American tradition for identifying conflict and walking through a process of healing. And so I've always had an interest in peace building. I specifically, before I started teaching in 2012, worked with the city of Pittsburgh on the Pittsburgh Initiative to Reduce Crime, which was a homicide deterrent strategy, a national strategy that was also done in Los Angeles, High Point, North Carolina, Boston, to reduce homicides that happen among the gang populations.
Yeah.
So in that position, I worked primarily with the top 1,000 gang members in the city of Pittsburgh, trying to repair relationships, healing, get them to transition their lives over, removing barriers to make them successful, make them proud of where they have come from, what they can accomplish. And, success in that program looked different to everyone. Sometimes success was keeping someone alive, so putting them in housing. Sometimes success was not just getting someone a job, but helping someone understand how to manage stress or dropping it off at school while managing a job, making sure to call in if you're running late. So all those skills that weren't once taught, helping support gang members in that sense. So a lot of my research focused in restorative practices because I had an interest in it because I lost a family member to gun violence. And so, that's the kind of stuff that really fuels your passions and your interest. And from there, I've always had an interest in kind of resolving conflict between family members, between departments, between students. And I think that shows throughout the peace building course.
That's awesome. And I think you hit on something, there are people who like to fix, conflicts, and that's not always, you can't always just fix a conflict. Talk about what you really do to transform when two people are in conflict and not just fix it.
Yeah. So I think people initially are always afraid of conflict. We we give it this negative rap. It's like the thing that, has a kind of like a tagged dirty stain on it. Like nobody wants to be in conflict. Nobody wants to fight. Nobody wants to argue. And the important part of conflict is that it's healthy. It's good. Conflict, it has an energy to it. And if you use that energy wisely, it can really transform some change. And that happens and starts oftentimes, which is how we go through the course, is resolving some of that inner conflict that you have within yourselves with your comparison, of where you are and where you thought you would be, or your comparison to family members, or you're not good enough, or perhaps the ways that you felt you've let yourself down. And so the course kind of progresses with looking in, acknowledging the conflict that is within, acknowledging the pain that you hold on to, feeling that pain, because I think that's important. Oftentimes we avoid it. We keep ourselves busy. We volunteer for a lot of different events or roles because we don't want to dissect that pain or that unresolved that lies within all of us. And from there, we move throughout the course into how that affects the outer world, the world that we're in with our family, our kids, our work life, our social life, our friends, and then into a greater context of, even into international or global peace. So
that's awesome. I just finished a conflict resolution class for the degree I'm in. And one of the biggest takeaways was I was in like a family conflict. I'm in school and I'm working all the time. And my daughter's like, Mom, can you just stop going to school and hang out with me? And when your 18-year-old kid's like, Mom, hang out with me. So I rearranged my world, which it wasn't actually that hard. It was like the expectation of it was so much more difficult than the execution of it. So I rearranged it and now we hang out all the time. We have movie Mondays, but it was good to like get that conflict early rather than in 10 years from now, she was like, you never hung out with me when you were in school. So I have an advantage of that, which was really great to see that conflict early and be able to change.
Yeah,
make it better.
That reminds me of the things that we see within teams in regards to conflict. Oftentimes when you get into a space of conflict, it's because you might have the same outcome as that person, but you have a different way of getting there, or there might be a differing outcome, or you have different perspectives. And I think as collaborators and as mindful persons, we have those things that are movable. And what I call those is boulders. We have boulders. We can move them. We can move a boulder. It has room to take a different perspective. It has room to change. And there are some things that you hold on to that you cannot move. And we call those tombstones. So obviously, in your example, obviously you're not going to drop out of school. That's something that is important to you.
Yeah.
That's a tombstone. No, I cannot do this. I cannot stop going to school. However, I do have a boulder that I can move around. I can do this. I can schedule, movie Mondays. I can use the time that my daughter doesn't want at 6 a.m., so those things that are able to be changed to resolve that conflict.
And that was, I like that boulder tombstone metaphor there, because it's true. I have to work, I have to sleep, and I'm going to school. So what can I move? And moving things around wasn't as hard as I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm. And that's often the case. We think that the issue or the conflict is much bigger than it actually is. And sometimes it just takes, getting to that space where you can collaborate and compromise, because conflict is all about compromise and using that energy that comes from conflict to do something differently.
I like that. It's like a negotiation. And in the class I was taking, it was like everything is a negotiation. Even like changing lanes on the highway is a negotiation, because you're thinking, hey, I got to get over, but you're in my way. And everything from, which milk should I buy and how much is this? We really do negotiate everything in our life.
We do. We absolutely do. I'm actually, for another university that I work for, I'm presenting on women in negotiation. So because it's a negotiation process with how we handle interactions or workload in the workplace, how we acquire things that we should already be given
Yeah.
as women, and how to negotiate better for them.
Well,
So,
part of that negotiation too is listening. I'm a deep, passionate human being about civil rights and personal rights and every sort of right a human should have. And I had to learn to negotiate, not just battering ram through conversations.
yeah,
And
I,
that's tough.
it is tough. It's, when you're passionate about something, and this is a lot of, theory that comes in with the way that women are represented. When we're passionate about items and we're boisterous about them, we often get termed as bossy or kind of sassy.
Rude. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are the kind of qualities that we admire in a man. Oh, he takes control. He's assertive. He's attentive. But when it comes across in a woman, because we are breaking mental models of many years that women are supposed to stay home. Women don't speak up. That's
Yeah.
why women weren't given the right to vote until much later. Women weren't allowed to do this. Women weren't allowed to serve in the military. You just stay home, stay quiet, don't speak up. It's rude for you. It's not professional for you to be passionate. And so we often tone police um, environments, conversations. We think women are getting too emotional because they're passionate about something. So we tell them to stay calm. And that's not the type of thing that we should be doing. That passion and emotion is what drives change. It's what keeps students coming to a university. I mean, you think about it, how many thousands of universities and colleges are online right now? We have students that can pick any college or any university, but some students are really looking for more. They're looking for that passion. They're looking for that connection. They don't want to just be an object. And we've seen that, people go to their local coffee shop because they like the conversation, because the barista knows their name, they know their order. When we take some time to recognize a person and value them, that's what's really important. And
And
that's
I
what,
think we do that here. I think we have that at Atlantic University. I get a lot of students calling me or potential students, and I was like, you're valued for your own opinion here. We're not trying to teach an opinion out of you. We're just trying to teach you to communicate that opinion.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, and that's, I think peace building is a heavy class that it's a transformational journey from the inside out. And, I think that it kind of aligns well with the mindful leadership department of you're not just getting a degree, anyone can give you a degree. Anyone can give you an online degree or diploma. You can get it from anywhere, but we are going to offer you a transformational process where you really learn, grow, and apply, not just in your life, your professional life, but also in your home and personal life. As a part of that peace building course, I had students that were going through COVID and coronavirus, who had family members that they lost during that process, and who really spoke up talk about sitting in your pain. One student had just, lost her mother during that process and said, this is so important. And I'm standing in my pain and I don't know if I'll be able to get out of it during this 12-week course. And that's okay. But, having that process and that support by her classmates and her professor, is really what makes the difference at Atlantic. Whereas other universities, you'd just be a number. You probably wouldn't have shared that, your mother had passed away. And I think about it.
Community. It's this great community.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I like that you talked about, being able to apply it, because you can't learn to be a leader and only apply it in one aspect of your life, especially in the mindfulness perspective. it has to be applied everywhere in your life, because it's not just, you're not getting an MBA here. You're getting something that's just like holistically changing your being.
Absolutely. I think that much like when leadership theory first started happening, it kind of took off. People were hosting leadership seminars, leadership conferences, leadership trainings at work, leadership certificates, and it kind of got saturated in that uh, everyone can just be a leader, which technically everyone can, but it takes learning really about that process in all different aspects of your life world. And I speak a little bit in some of my lectures about living your noble purpose. And sometimes when we think of leadership, we think of it's easily compared to noble purpose. When you live your noble purpose, that means that you're doing something noble every day, and those everyday acts. And sometimes people see that as something heroic, and that's how we look at leadership. You don't have to be a powerful person. You don't have to, end, uh, discrimination on by Tuesday to be a leader. You do those small acts, those small noble acts in your everyday life, and that's what makes you a leader. You don't have to be some victorious, heroic legend to be a leader. And I think that, people need reminded of that. And without followers, none of us could ever be leaders. And so, I think as you learn more about leadership theory, you recognize the importance of followership and how important that is. And sometimes as a leader, you have to fall back. Hey, this is not my expertise. This is not something I can offer. I'm going to take some steps back and let somebody else lead, and I'm going to follow. So it's constantly a shift in that power, to recognize when someone can lead or navigate better than you, to capitalize on other people's assets, to, maybe I'm a good organizer, but another person is a good public speaker.
Yeah.
So how do we capitalize on their leadership skills and abilities to get to the goal that we're all aiming for?
Peggy mentioned, Peggy Reward, another leadership faculty member, that there was this preconceived notion about what leadership is, and it didn't take into account gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic level. It really was fashioned after white men in leadership. And we have to poke holes in that and take that down, because leadership is not just white men in power.
Absolutely. I think that, we're seeing a shift in that, but not nearly as much as we should. I think about when I was growing up, I grew up in a relatively poor family. I was initially born in a subsidized housing community. My mom and dad just had an high school education. Nobody in my family had ever gone to college. And that process didn't really offer me the opportunity to dream or to think about what I could be when I grow up. My parents encouraged me to go to college. And I also write poetry. And in one of my poems, I talk about how I'm swinging on a swing. And my mom asked me, what I want to be when I grow up. And I never really responded, because I didn't have that opportunity to dream and think that women could be leaders. They could be doctors. They could be PhDs and professors. I didn't see that in my life, and it wasn't shown to me a lot in the media, in the news around me. And so now that's kind of shifting. We see the movement of women of the future, a lot of different political organizations that are putting more women in positions of political power. We see a shift in education with women, different universities taking on concepts to put more women in leadership positions. Now, is the work done? No, because much like we've seen with diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of people adopt these policies to look good as an organization, as a university, as a corporation, but it doesn't mean that they're actually embedded in their everyday practices. It's more of a safety net. And so there's still a lot of work to do.
It's a lot of, what did Jules Maloney and I, we talked about, it's programming. We have to unprogram,
Absolutely.
and that's work.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken thousands of years to get here. There's no reason that, that we can undo it in 10 years, 20 years. So, but,
No,
we can start demanding for it as women. And that's where, using your voice is important, staying true to your noble purpose. When somebody tries to quiet your voice or tone police you, or mansplain you, which is a term that often happens. A woman says something, it's powerful and strong, it's not acknowledged. A man comes by, says the same thing, and he's patted on the back and awarded. And those are the types of situations where we have to educate ourselves as women to know they're going on and to call them out when they do happen privately, to educate others in a group or culture, university, organization on, what those small microaggressions can be, or small fighting tactics. And so that's important.
that's interesting that you mentioned, tone policing and mansplaining, maybe even spotlighting we could add in there, and microaggressions, because when it's the aggressor or the splainer, it's missed. And it's, the people on the other side. I mean, this just happened. You witnessed it recently in a meeting where I said something and two other men said the exact same thing. And everyone was like, yeah, that's exactly the point. And I said, I just said the same thing. And it is a microaggression and it feels really bad. Like, I had that idea and you guys just talked over me.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, it happens more than, even we are aware of. It happens everywhere where, if as women, we don't educate ourselves to understand how, we're quieting ourselves or letting that happen, then we're not able to educate others. And so it's also a responsibility, not just of everybody around us, but also of ourselves to take that time to educate ourselves. Much like we're looking at, systematic racism right now. It's not the responsibility of people of color to learn about how we are oppressing, or to teach us about how we're oppressing them. It is our responsibility to learn and pick out those microaggressions, those mental models, those barriers that we create with the way that we're living our lives.
yeah. And I like how that's kind of all incorporated into who you are, and you incorporate that into everything you teach and lecture about and everything you bring to the university.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can never say I've experienced anything like a person of color has, but identifying as a WSW, which is the public health term for a lesbian, I have experienced discrimination in my life. I grew up in a Catholic community. I went to a Catholic prep school that was paid for because, like I said, I was lower income. My church paid for me to go to that Catholic school, so I had to go to church. I had to show up. I had to be present. I had to go to church twice a week, or else my school wasn't paid for. And so to grow up in an environment like that, it was very oppressive, identifying as a lesbian. Oftentimes, and I actually speak about this pretty often, about the weight of being inauthentic, and how I had two closets up until my early 30s. One closet was all feminine clothes. One closet was all masculine clothes. I would wear my feminine clothes when I would go to my hometown, when I would hang out with friends or family members that were religious, Catholic, that didn't know that I identified as a lesbian, that I was scared to be myself around. In the other closet, I would wear my more masculine clothes with my friends who made me feel safe, that were open, that were diverse. And, I had those two closets until my early 30s. And so finally I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be someone that someone else wants me to be and not be who I am. The way I dress is a part of my identity. It makes me feel comfortable and safe. And whenever I put on something that doesn't feel comfortable to me, I'm not living my most authentic life. And so that was a weight that I carried for many years and finally let go of. So
How did that feel when you finally were like, you know what? We're gonna burn the ruffles. Not that I see you in ruffles, but metaphorically.
it felt real. I mean, it felt good because prior to me working at Atlantic, I interviewed for a position at a Catholic university in Pittsburgh. And I was picking out my outfit. I still had a women's closet of women's clothes for interviews. I still had a closet of men's clothes that I felt comfortable in. And I talked, I think, to my mom the day before, and I said, you know what? I'm going to wear my pantsuit and a bow tie because I know this is a Catholic university. And if I don't come as I am and feel accepted, then I don't want to work there. And so I went in to my interview with nuns wearing bow ties and a pantsuit and with a vest. And, everything went well. Everything was supportive. The people were kind. The director of IT actually, when I walked in, said he loved my pantsuit, then told me that he identified as gay and showed me pictures of his family. And, so then I asked him, what is the scoop? Because a lot of people will say that, that they're accepting and inclusive, but, when you get into it, it's not like that. And he completely, was open and honest and told me that how accepting they were. He's like, I don't know what kind of nuns these are, but they're the nice kind. And, of course I didn't get the job, but, that was the first tipping point for me where I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to go away, pack a bag, not know what to take, if I should take my feminine clothes or my masculine. I just want to take my clothes. So,
But that's two personalities too you were living with, two faces.
exactly. And I'm actually, I just submitted a article about some research that I did. It talks about compartmentalizing. The title is Abandoning Ourselves Over and Over Again. And it's like the power of compartmentalizing on one's life. And so how heavy it is. Think about if you're going to work or home or church or your third place or your coffee shop, your gym, and you have to be all these different types of people. How exhausting that is to not just be yourself, to remember who you have to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had to do that, even until this year, until the Supreme Court passed Title VII, that sexuality, you cannot discriminate against it based on sexuality. I know my friends that were teachers in schools who would put a picture on their desk of their brother and them just to make it look like they had a male partner, because you could easily be fired for being gay in a school district, And so that weight of risk is lessened when we do things like, pass the rolling of Title VII, because, when you ask people to be more authentic or to be more vulnerable, they look at their families. They say, okay, if I come out to someone, I could lose my job. I could then lose my opportunity to provide for my family. So that weight and the heaviness of that risk sometimes isn't worth it to people. But when we enact things like policy or laws that protect people and say, hey, you cannot lose your job now, then we have that capacity to speak more and be authentic, be vulnerable, share about our life. And I think, that's important.
I think you're just sharing that part of being authentic is a form of leadership. There's probably people out there who just don't know what to do, and that completely changes people's worlds. And we're like, yeah, I do live two lives. How do I merge these? So I want to come back to our mindful leadership program. I know you're head of the department, so you can probably speak on this. Tell me what you're hoping students coming into the program, whether it's the graduate certificate, which is 5 courses, 15 credits, or the full master's degree, which is 39 credits. What are you hoping for them to see and be at the end?
Well, I mentioned this earlier. I don't just want them to come and get a piece of paper that says they graduated. I want them to be able to talk about their experience as if it were a journey inward, a journey outward that now affects all parts of their lives. And that's what I hope that they get. I think that we have some key courses that identify sensitive topics, from decolonizing your mind, which is a new course, to peace building, to conflict and change, and working with conflict and change and leadership. We have a lot of materials that help you dig deeper within yourself and how that affects the communities that you are a part of. I'm thinking of the Immunity to Change book, which is a required book in one of our courses, which really looks at what is keeping you from changing individually, and also how that affects your life worlds at work, at home, etc. So, with the coursework that we give, with the connections that we build, I hope that it's something that you want to share with others. Like, it was so powerful and such a great experience that you're going to recommend this program, not because it's relatively a lower cost program, not because it's easy and it's online, but because it truly was a part of your life that was a shift for you. Maybe it helped you get rid of your 2 closets. Maybe it helped you understand your inner peace and what wasn't sitting at rest. Maybe it helped you understand conflict at home and how to use it for good. Maybe it helped you understand dialogue at work and what your boulders or your tombstones are. And so I think, that is my hope for certificate students and for master's students, is that it's a process that's a journey for them, where they come in and they're not sure. They're not sure about what this program's going to do for them. But as it goes on, they really just feel connected to it. And it's such a rewarding experience that they continue to share it with others.
Perfect. Thank you so much for spending time talking about the programs and being so vulnerable that you are able to talk about yourself in a safe, comfortable environment. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And that's something that, comes through in our courses, is that, we want to also share our experiences and lives, because that's what builds true connections between a mentor and a student. So,
yeah. And on that, thank you. And you'll see these people in class someday.
Yes.
Bye.